Brighton SEO Friday afternoon, talking to Dave Cousin.
Hi there.
You did a talk yesterday?
I did, yes. I was talking yesterday about how to future-proof migrations, basically in this age of AI where we don't know what's coming next and things are changing all the time. And the main reason I chose that topic was because lots of people seem to be holding back right now on migrating when actually they've got sites that aren't AI friendly and need to be fixed, but they're just putting off migrating. So I thought
putting it
that'd
off
be a good idea.
just because of AI?
I think so. I think there's just so much uncertainty. Particularly people who are in-house and have that responsibility, who maybe are coming to events like Brighton SEO. Once a year they get to come to an event, and that's when they kind of realise that actually everything's changed. And everything's changing so fast, they just don't know, okay, well, which is the right platform to move to that's going to be AI friendly now and in future? And, am I going to have to change and migrate again in another year's time because there's going to be new protocols, new rules? So I think everyone's just a bit nervous about migrating and then getting it wrong. And
so I get that meme in my mind with the house on fire and everything is all right.
It's also like the discussion. I think that Joost Valk did some about that. About not moving a new website to WordPress but to Astro because it's more vibe code flexible in some kind of way.
Yeah. So that's definitely the kind of thing. I mean, WordPress is not a bad option, to be honest, compared to a lot of the stuff out there. There's some platforms that are just absolutely disastrous for AI accessibility, even like the basics right now. And there's so many people I talk to who just don't realize there's something stopping AI accessing their content at all. And they're just kind of missing out on any kind of visibility right now. And a lot of people aren't measuring the visibility either, so it's only when they start measuring it then they start saying like, okay, well, who can help me out here and answer the questions as why this is.
So how can you future-proof your migrations then?
Well, I mean, the main point of my talk was about choosing a platform that's flexible and what are those things that are going to make it flexible. Obviously going through kind of the stuff right now that we know and is kind of the current standards, but also talking about how we know, okay, we've got a few protocols right now for accessing to the back end via an endpoint. So we got things like MCP that didn't quite work out as planned for now, but it's going to improve. We've got things like ACP and UCP for agentic commerce.
Yeah.
But all of these protocols have a few things in common. So even though we don't know exactly what the kind of winning protocols are going to be and how they're going to develop in future, if we've got a good API, like a RESTful API, which has got flexibility to do whatever we want with it, to get and post, and can work with AI tools via whatever the protocols end up being, then that's kind of one way to be flexible. And that's kind of on the back end side of things.
Is it a platform choice?
It's partly a platform. So it really is, a matter of finding something that's got the API baked in from the beginning. Obviously, you can take a site and you can, try and engineer an API off the back end later on. But ideally, you want to migrate to a site that's got everything you need kind of baked in without having to kind of go and recode it later on.
And you're not afraid in things like this because you still hear, and it's still happening, that AI is hallucinating. So if you're having your AI take care of your migration, that it hallucinates certain pages or certain redirects.
Now that's another interesting topic. Yeah, so actually using an AI for the migration is, there's certain things it might be able to help with a little bit, but it's in general for me, AI isn't capable of doing technical SEO or technical AI SEO, and it doesn't even understand how it works itself. So the last thing you should be doing if you're not sure what to do on your migration to make it AI friendly is ask your AI what it wants for it to be AI friendly, because it doesn't know and it doesn't actually understand how it works itself.
Do you have some good examples of this where you saw this happening?
Just for kind of like technical SEO in general, like if you ask Claude or ChatGPT like how their actual process works for them going and actually accessing a page and being able to see what's there and that whole process and whether or not they support certain schemas and so on, they will be very confident that they can see pages, that they can render pages. Sometimes they'll say, things like they understand kind of all types of schema, and they'll tell you they get the schema back from the tool that actually then goes and fetches the pages for them, because it's not the LLM itself that's going and looking at the page. It's a tool which uses a user agent that goes and pulls the content from the page.
Yep.
And that tool right now varies a little bit by the LLMs, but in general that tool right now will use things like semantic HTML to identify what the main content is and pull it, but it's not actually pulling the semantic HTML back for the LLM to see, or pulling the structured data back for the LLM to see. And that might change in the future, but right now that's not the case. But if you ask, the LLM, sometimes they'll just hallucinate and tell you that they can see things and do things they can't. And sometimes you'll ask them to check a page for you and say, like, okay, can you see this page? Can you see this text on the page? And they'll say they can. And so you have to be really careful, because a lot of the time they can't, and maybe what they're seeing is they're looking for that page in search results, and they're seeing the snippet that they get back from the search results, which is a lot more than the meta description that you'd see in the normal search results. They're getting a big chunk of text, and so sometimes they'll use that text to pretend that they can actually see the page itself, when maybe they can't even access that page. Maybe they can't even get a 200 status on that page. So you might think that your current site's absolutely fine, there's no issues at all, when actually the reality is completely inaccessible to these tools already.
Yeah, I think you can match a lot of URLs via AI, right? For redirect files, maybe 80% or something. You have to manually check, but
Exactly.
maybe sample size or something.
There's almost certainly going to be some errors in there. And you have to have perfect data in the first place.
Yeah.
And if there isn't a page for it to map to, that's when it might start trying to hallucinate.
Yeah.
So, for example, if it's kind of seen thousands and thousands of your URLs, and it thinks it understands the structure of the URLs, if it can't find a matching one, it will guess what it thinks the structure of that would be and what it would look like. And so suddenly you've got a URL that doesn't exist. And in some cases, you might then put them all in Screaming Frog to see which ones actually are real pages, and do a crawl, and you come back and you find maybe 80-90% of them are real. But I've heard examples where people have done that and they've literally only found like 2 or 3 URLs that really exist, and all the rest are hallucinated.
Yeah, that's a big problem. And you talked about the MCPs and UCPs and platform choices. It's also a responsibility of the platform itself to be flexible and come up with the APIs and
to some extent. And if you've got a platform where it's open source, where there's a community, where there are people creating extensions, either free ones or paid ones, then there's a good chance that if an issue comes along in the future, and there needs to be a solution for it, somebody will build that solution. Either they'll share it in the community, or they'll create an extension, and then you can solve the issue that way. Whereas if you're using some of the kind of more basic platforms that are, not open source at all, and you don't have the flexibility to do things like injecting custom code, you don't have flexibility over things like adding extra fields that you might need in future, then that's where you're going to potentially get stuck with those less flexible, more brittle platforms. Some of the ones that seem very easy to use and very easy to set up and don't involve any dev work to kind of actually get them up and running. The reality is that those are the ones that are most likely to have issues. And when I audit sites to try and understand which ones actually are AI friendly and actually have the content in the source code, and it's not using client-side rendering and things like this, and it's not using single-page applications. It's always those kind of ones that are quick and easy to set up in theory that have all of those problems really baked in, and they're difficult to then fix.
But if you're talking about future-proofing migrations, isn't it very non-future-proof to have custom code injected on certain pages, because in certain pages they don't follow along the convention of the rest of the website. So when you want to migrate, you really need to have a proper log of all those custom changes and all those custom little pages that you have.
Yeah, ideally you want to, at least at the point when you're migrating, have it set up and be as friendly as possible for what we know now about what looks AI friendly and what is coming soon that we've maybe got more visibility on. So things like WebMCP that's been released recently, we know how that's going to work, at least to begin with. Obviously it'll evolve over time, and so we want to make sure we've got a site where we can use WebMCP on the front end of the website, which is basically it explains to AI what it can do on a page, how to do it. There's a little bit more to it than that, but basically, it makes the front end more AI friendly, and we know what that's going to be, and that's just been released, and so obviously we want to make sure that's kind of stuff's baked in. But it's the stuff that we literally just can't guess and don't know about that we then potentially, if we've got a site where we can inject custom code on a template level, not just on a page level, then that's where we can kind of solve any problems that come along. And like I say, if there's it's a platform where there's a big community online, everyone can work together to be like, okay, well, this thing's just been announced. Like, how are we going to fix this? Because obviously, a year ago, if you were migrating, you had no idea that WebMCP was going to be a thing, so you couldn't predict it. But if you're on a flexible platform now, then you've got the opportunity to solve that problem and kind of work with the community and solve that problem, which might just be injecting custom code on a template level.
How do you feel about WebMCP as a choice right now? Is it the next big thing, or do you think it potentially will go the AMP route at one point and be and everybody's betting on the wrong horse there?
Yeah, it's difficult to know. So, you've got two types of WebMCP. You've got the imperative and the declarative. And I'm probably going to get them the wrong way around, but hopefully it's the right way around. So the imperative is very basic, very easy to add to what you've already got. So say you've got a form on a site that you want AI to be able to fill that out, either fill it out on its own or fill it out with the help of humans for some parts of it. Imperative WebMCP, you basically are adding instructions to the code, and you can basically say, okay, this is what needs to go into this field, this is what needs to go into this field needs human input, and give the AI instructions. And that's a relatively easy thing to do, so it's low risk to invest the time in making that work. Now, the declarative part is basically a kind of app that runs in the background on the page, and so if you're using like these browser-based AI tools, they'll be able to come to that page and work through that app and potentially do lots of stuff in the background that the human user can't actually see it doing. It's going to be far more effective than at the moment. I don't know if you've kind of used some of these browser-based tools like Atlas or Claude in Chrome.
Yeah.
They're a great idea, but right now they're very slow. They get stuck. They use up a lot of tokens, right? And so it's sort of a solution to that problem. But that declarative WebMCP is a bit more of an investment in dev time. So right now, I wouldn't necessarily say you have to get it set up and running. But if you're migrating, it's a big risk if you're migrating to a platform where you haven't got an idea of how you would solve that problem if it does become the next big thing.
But burning tokens is flexing how good you're doing, right?
What's that, sorry?
Burning tokens is flexing how good you're doing, right?
Apparently so. But I was doing some work recently, and I burnt through a heck of a lot of tokens, and I suddenly checked how much money I'd spent, and I'm not doing that quite that well. I went back and
next time you're doing it manually again.
I put it on the kind of super fast version of Claude. That got through a lot of tokens while I was off doing something else. It was going round in circles trying to fill out a form, and managed to burn through about $50-$60 worth of tokens in the time that I was doing something else, thinking that Claude was helping me, and I had to step in and fix it in the end anyway.
I think that at some time Anthropic will hire the prices, right, of the tokens.
I really don't know how much it actually costs them.
No.
I think
it's not that transparent as well.
No, they must be making some good money on some of this stuff. But I think they probably make more money out of those kind of powerful users, probably like 1 or 2% of users who are burning through those tokens than they do from people on the kind of basic paid packages. whether that's their kind of long-term plan or whether that's just to get kind of people, using Claude and realizing how much better it is than ChatGPT, in some people's opinions.
Well, I think
including mine.
the big problem for a lot of people is that using any form of LLM is bringing in so much memory of you into the LLM that at one point it's becoming very difficult. Let's say Claude is messing up their entire business. Then for you to move out that memory and
it's
take
a lock-in.
And move your memory to a different LLM and continue there.
Yeah. I mean, they're kind of putting some solutions in place where you can export those memories, but
recently a lot of people moved away from ChatGPT, including myself, and then I have to figure out
custom GPTs.
And I had to figure out how to move my memory over from one place to another.
Yeah. I mean, it's you can do it. But it's a bit of a nuisance. My problem with the memories in Claude is that I work on so many different clients that it gets very confused, and it assumes I'm working on one client and then gives me an answer that only makes sense in the context of a conversation that I had, a month ago about a different client. Like, no. For this particular client, I'm doing this thing. This is the background. And suddenly, by the time you start adding all the background in and clarifying these things, it takes longer than just doing the work yourself sometimes.
Okay.
You also think we are heading towards a situation where we use a lot of AI, use a lot of cloud, where AI can manage to do migration themselves when they not hallucinate that much and when they learn?
I mean, I think the opportunity there is, to build
kind of singularity
GPT for migration.
The SEO singularity.
I think there's potential for it to be better if you work out why it's going wrong, why it's hallucinating, and come up with better prompts and can tell it to do particular things. And there are some things that if you go and check afterwards, it's going to take you as long to check it to do it in the first place. There obviously are some things that are going to save a lot of time. Including
what will be the added
of course.
value of us as a SEO specialist or migration specialist? Making choices, to advise companies to make the right choices, or?
I'd like to see it get to that point where it gives that advice, and that advice is worthwhile and is can be relied on. At the moment, it's great for doing research and finding places to go and read around a topic. And get those initial recommendations of, okay, this platform seems to tick these boxes, but you need to go then and verify that yourself and read into it more. There's so much choice in platforms, right? If you can get it down to 3 or 4 options and then check that it really does tick the boxes that it's saying it does for you, I think that's where the potential is. And I think in general for these kind of software as a service kind of products and platforms and things like that, where there is huge amounts of documentation online that you don't necessarily want to read through, getting it to digest that down, there's a lot of opportunity there.
Nice.
I think this is almost the end of the episode. One thing we would like to ask all our guests as a final question before we wrap up this episode is, can you share with us your biggest SEO fuck up that you made over the years, and what did you learn from this?
That's a good question, and I'm trying to think now what that would be. There's nothing that's jumping to mind.
Crickets.
My mind's gone blank. Sorry, it's going to need a little bit of editing. But my biggest,
maybe a thing you wished you would have done differently. Let me rephrase the question.
I mean, let me kind of focus on migrations. I guess there's lots of fuck ups that I've been involved with from migrations that weren't my fault. I can't think of any that were actually my fault. I'm pleased to say.
Can you give me an example then where it wasn't your fault?
Yeah, I mean,
it's always the developers' mistake.
Yeah, it's always developers. It's doing things like just leaving the entire site blocked on launch day. Yeah. It's things like getting all the redirects set up and all ready to go within the staging, and then them not moving across, or the developer not getting the memo that we've done the redirect mappings and just mapping everything back to the homepage. And of course, the number one, which I think most SEOs who work on migrations have come across at some point, is going to be just surprise migrations. Like one day you come into work, you go onto the client's website, and you're like, what's all different?
Well, some people would say you have not properly lived until you've seen a complete de-indexation of your website, right?
Absolutely. I mean, in some cases, like literally, you've got no idea that they're going to migrate at all. In other cases, like you've told them, do not migrate to the site. It's not ready. You cannot migrate, and they're like, okay, fine, we'll put it off, and then they migrate anyway.
On a Friday at 6 p.m.
Exactly.
Because the boss wants to.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the boss wants to.
During the Friday afternoon drink, let's migrate anyway.
I had one like that before. Yeah, I had one like that before, where the migration was an e-commerce site, and the entire navigation was based on a color selector, like a color selector wheel, and that was the only way to then go through to any of the category pages.
There must have been some creative person who came up with this concept.
Absolutely. I mean, it was brilliant.
Could you spin the wheel as well, like so?
In Flash?
That would have been a good one. But I literally, there's no other way to get to any other pages. So just came in on Monday and found that the only page that was still indexed by Google at that point was the home page.
Best fuck-ups come up with migration.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, thank you so much for being a part of the pod.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's been fun.
And we wish you have a lovely rest of your day.
Have fun today.
Yeah, you too. Thank you very much.
Bye.